Hi, my name is Victoria, and I'm going to go over prompting with you today, something called the prompt hierarchy. Just a little bit about prompting. It's a huge part of how we teach children with autism or developmental disabilities how to learn. When we break skills into small parts and use a structured system of prompts and prompt fading, teaching these skills and learning these skills becomes a more effective task. So, what is a prompt? Prompts are basically just a certain type of assistance. There are technically six, if you're not counting independent, as a type of assistance level that we're going to give to the student or to the client. There is 7 total on our prompt hierarchy, and I'm going to go through and explain them all to you now. So, this is the top of our ladder, starting at independent on our prompt hierarchy. Independent is the least intrusive prompt because it's not a true prompt. It is the child is doing it independently. You ask them to do a skill and they are able to do that skill. So if you gave the child like 3 cards, let's imagine that these are cards with letters on them, and so we have some letters out in front of the child, and you ask them to pick up the letter B. And that is not a prompt. Asking the child to pick up the letter B is the instruction. That is just the direction that you're giving them, so that doesn't count when it's said one time. So if you say, pick up the letter B, and the child goes ahead and picks up that letter B, then they just did it at the independent level. And if you were marking that on a data sheet, you would write something like independent plus, because they did it. They were able to do it independently. So that's something that you could write on a data sheet. Everywhere you go, there might be a little bit of a different way to write that down, but that's just an example. Next, a step down on our ladder is visual. Okay, so visual is the next prompt. It becomes a little bit more intrusive. This is where, say I have these 3-letter cards out in front of a student, and I'm asking them to pick up the letter A, and I show them a picture of the letter A, then that could be a visual prompt. I'm visually giving them a prompt, visually giving them some assistance, and then they are able to pick up the letter A. And then you would mark that on your data sheet as, you might write the word visual out, or V. Because there's a visual and a verbal, usually you'd have to write the word out, unless there's something specific on your data sheet that tells them to apart. So underneath a visual prompt is a verbal prompt. So a verbal prompt is one more step down our ladder, one more step closer to the most restrictive, the most intrusive prompts. So verbal prompt is, it could be a few different things. So a verbal prompt could be if I give the direction, pick up the letter A, and then I say, pick up the letter A again, that could count as a verbal prompt. So say it takes me 4 times to say the direction. I said, pick up the letter A 4 times. Then you're going to mark that on your data sheet as 3 verbal prompts. So I said, pick up the letter A, there's my direction. Pick up the letter A, pick up the letter A, pick up the letter A. And they got it on that 4th time. Then this first one is just our direction, so it's not going to count, and you're going to write 3 verbal prompts or something like that on your data sheet, so that you know it's important to mark that these, whatever, you might put on a sticky note if you're doing something, like functional play or man training or something out in, like, not a discrete trial. You might just put it in your brain or mark it on a sticky note and keep it for later. But it's really important that you are keeping track of the different prompts that the student is requiring to get something correct, for them to be able to correctly identify what you're asking them to identify or do what you're asking them to do, because that way you can know where to begin next session, and you can know where you need to move up towards independent, because prompt fading is a huge part. I'll get a little bit more into prompt fading in a minute. I'm going to continue to explain to you guys all of these prompts. So underneath a verbal prompt is gestural, okay? So this is something that the adult is going to do with their hands, usually, as a form of assistance to get the child to get the answer or make an answer choice. So if I want the child to pick up the letter A, I might say, pick up the letter A, and run my hand across all of these letters here to get them to understand that they need to come reach up here and pick up a letter. I wouldn't say pick up the letter A and point directly at the letter A, because then you're giving them the answer. I would just do something like this, like a gestural prompt. If you're trying to get a child to sit in a chair, a gestural prompt for that would be pointing at the chair. And you say, time to sit, and they don't sit, and you need to give them a verbal prompt. You might say, time to sit again, and if they don't sit, or you might sign sit. This is a verbal communication, so you might sign, time to sit, time to sit, time to sit. That was me going through. Independent was just the direction, then visual was, well, I did verbal, and then gestural. So visual for the chair, you might show them a picture of a chair if you have a picture of a chair on hand, or a picture of a student sitting in a chair. Verbal, telling them again to sit. Gestural, pointing at that chair. Okay? Next step down our ladder would be modeling. So a model prompt would be if I say pick up the letter A, and then I pick up the letter A. Oh, good job, we got the letter A. And then I put it back and rearrange the cards, and then I say, you pick up the letter A. And then now the child gets to pick up the letter A after a model, after seeing the adult do it. For sitting down, if I tell the child to sit and they need a model prompt, I would sit. I would show them sitting in a chair with my body, and then expect them to try and sit after seeing the adult model it for them. Okay. Next down on our ladder is partial physical assistance. So this prompt is pretty self-explanatory. You are partially helping them with your body. So you are physically touching the child or the client, but you're partially doing it. So let's say we are trying to write our name. A partial physical prompt for writing your name could be like your support at the wrist, but you are not moving the child's hand, controlling all of those letter movements. You might keep them in a line, or you might help them space their letters, but you are not forming their letters. You are just partially helping them. That's a partial physical prompt. To get them to pick up the letter A, you might tap the back of their elbow and say, pick up the letter A. Come on, pick up the letter A. And that tap of the letter on their arm for their hands to reach forward, that's a partial physical assistance. Full physical is exactly what that means. You are fully physically helping the child to complete the task. So if you want them to pick up the letter A, you are going to hand over hand pick up the letter A. There's also some hand under hand. This is also like really helpful for kids who are like deaf blind. If you ever work with some populations like that, hand under hand would be our hand going towards the A and the child's hand just kind of sitting on top, and then them being not aversive to the movements of grabbing a letter A. That's a little bit different, but most of the time a full physical prompt is going to be something that is completely hand over hand, where you are taking the child's hand and you are picking it up, and then they have completed the task with your full assistance. Full physical is our most intrusive prompt. It is down at the bottom of our ladder here. So when we talk about most to least, we're going up. So most being full physical, up to the least of independent. If we're talking about least to most, you're going to start up here at independent You're going to go down the ladder because least to most. So when do you use most to least versus least to most? That depends on the student, on the skill that you're working on the situation. Depends on a lot. If it is a brand new task that they that you know that they are not going to be able to do, I would start at a full physical. I would start most to least, and then I would go up. If it's brand new and you know it's too hard for them, or you know they're not going to be able to do it. If it's something that they've done before, or you know that they can probably do it, you're just not sure how much assistance they might need, I would start least to most. Try independent, try a visual prompt and see how that goes, try a verbal prompt, see how that goes, try a gestural prompt, and then see. Once the child is able to do it, you're going to stop there. If you give them a gestural prompt and they sit, you point to that chair and they sit down, then you're going to stop. You're not going to give them a model. You don't need to go any further because now you want to go back up. Prompt fading, you always want to get back to independent. That's our goal. We want a child to be as independent as possible. So if we are able to point to a chair and get the child to sit, then we are next time around going to try to get them to do it with just verbal, and then we're going to try and move to visual, and then we're going to see if they can do it independently. This might take time. It depends on the student. This might take weeks to get back to independent. This might take months or a year to get up to independent, and that just depends on your learner. But this is our prompt hierarchy. It's very important when working with children with autism. It helps us to be able to teach them and for them to be able to learn and understand and get to an independent level. If you use prompt fading in the right way and you constantly try and get back up to that independent level, then you're going to have a easier time getting that child to be able to complete a skill, complete a task with the least amount of prompts. I hope that this helps and that you can understand our prompt hierarchy a little bit better. Thank you so much for your time.